This past weekend saw the first round of the college football playoff games occur, with higher seeds Oregon, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M getting home field advantage after successful seasons. But the committee has announced that after Texas A&M had an equal number of turnovers and points, they're now calling it home field suggestion. Welcome to the Moonstamp Cast. I am Jordan. I am joined telepathically by the entire playoff is illegitimate and will be forgotten by history to my what's lower, the use of the economy or Marcel Reed's draft stock, Brian. Brian, how are you? I think to ask. So because it's the week of Christmas, we're doing another one of those weird episodes where we do go half and half and half. We're like cream and milk. We're doing half and half right now. So Brian has already recorded today. I don't know what he said. I know what he talked about because we sent that beforehand. And I have notes based on what he's talked about, but I don't know what he actually said. So everything I say could be ridiculous or nonsensical or had nothing to do, or he may have already said it. I don't know. But welcome to the Moonstamp Cast. It's 2.36, I think, the week of Christmas, and it's going to be 2 weeks of all Wednesday episode just because it's, the holiday season and Santa Claus has come to town. I saw he did take off, but yeah. So before we do all that, let me send it over to Brian real quickly to say hello.
That's a pretty good one, Jordan. Hey, everybody, it's Brian from the Moonstamp Cast here. Obviously, this is one of those episodes where we don't record at the same time, and we both talk about the same things, and Jordan has the difficult job of stitching it together, and hopefully it sounds coherent, which he did a great job the last time. I'm happy I'm not in his shoes, if I'm being completely honest. But so we're just going to jump into things. We're super busy during the holidays, so this is the best way we could do it. I don't have a whole lot. We exchanged a couple notes, but it won't be too much for me, especially because I'm running on about 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep, and I have a full day of Christmas festivities with my family before we have a full day of Christmas festivities with my wife's family. So, holidays.
Thanks, Brian. I think. I don't know. I'm going to start with the whole Notre Dame, USC, BYU, love triangle, hate triangle, whatever triangle. The easiest joke to make is, wow, I'm looking forward to BYU versus Notre Dame. If only there was a way that could have been played this season. Because I still think they should have played in the Pop-Tart Bowl because it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. Who cares? I had said a couple weeks ago by myself, and I think it was another half and half podcast or maybe Jordan only podcast, where I also, if you're listening, apologies, and I can start this over in a second, but if you're watching, not listening, it starts flashing, my light's going out, and I don't want to have him replace the bulb because it started while I was recording. But I said a couple weeks ago, and I think I released a clip where I was like, when is it going to happen that schools are going to stop scheduling Notre Dame? And I was met with some backlash. One guy told me I had no clue what I was talking about, which, by the way, all I was saying, I was asking a question. I wasn't making any sort of statement whatsoever. It was a legitimate question of, because the new meta in college football seems to be, and I think the committee has kind of done this to itself, wins and losses matter and strength of schedule matters, but only to an extent where if, let's say, you're in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to get better rankings / opportunities. And I asked the question of, when does everyone stop scheduling Notre Dame? Turns out, didn't have to wait. I was actually thinking it was going to be a next year thing because I know their schedule is kind of set in stone. It happens right now. Now, I know people are going to say it's a weak move by USC because I think it's both sides couldn't come to an agreement. I don't think it was just one side. It was a twofer thing. It's a weak move by USC, and they should respect the tradition. And as much as I respect tradition in a sense, I also have the wherewithal to understand that the current meta of college football expects you to adapt or die. Adapt or get left behind. It's like that Pirates of the Caribbean, and maybe it was the third movie, where that one British guy is saying he hasn't realized that the currency of the world is now currency. It's kind of like that, where as much as this tradition, I know it's highly ranked. I will say I've never cared much for Notre Dame, USC. It doesn't when I think of, and I think maybe it's because maybe it's like a young, like it was a past thing, like since like the 2000s, like mid 2000s, it hasn't really been a thing as much. It's like you look through the SEC, the Big Ten, those rivalry games, and even like the Texas rivalry, Texas A&M went away for a second there, because again, you adapt or you get left behind, and A&M kind of realized I'm going to get left behind if I'm in the Big 12, so they adapted and they left and they went to the SEC. And so, as much as people want to say this is weak sauce on the part, and I said weak sauce, but on the weak sauce on the part of USC, it's not. I think it is the how to survive the current meta of college football, especially in a conference like the Big Ten that has 20 teams, where 4 or 5 are going to be good. 4, you got maybe at most 4 are going to make it. And so if you're playing the bottom half of the Big Ten, and you come to the end of the season and you see Notre Dame on your schedule, like shit, I actually have to play hard. Whereas I can, schedule another. I have like Rutgers again or like Maryland again. You're gonna take that every time because the Big Ten. Because as much as the strength of schedule matters, they're gonna look at like, oh, he's in the Big Ten. Especially make the Big Ten championship game. So I respect tradition. At the same time, I understand you adapt and you survive, and that's what they had to do. They're like animals. With that said. We don't have many holy wars. We don't have like religious fights. And I don't mean like the Crusades. I mean like we don't have like the Catholics versus the convicts or something. It's like not really like it's still a thing, but it's like not a thing. As in like Miami doesn't really have that reputation anymore. Notre Dame is like Catholic, but realistically, if I'm being honest here, does Villanova have claim for the Catholic University of America now because the Pope? I think I look like a whatever. Does it have the claim for the Catholic University of America now? Is Villanova the Catholic school? I kind of say yes. With that said, I don't even know I think Villanova has a football team that beats Tarleton State. They have an FCS team. I would really like, because hands up, don't like Utah as a concept right now because I think they're like Ray Dunn incarnate, if that makes sense. Where they have the crumble cookies and the dirty sodas and all that jazz. They have a lot of like cultural staying power, like those Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and the whole TikTok thing. They have all that. And so part of me thinks that this is a great test of Catholics versus Mormons of who is the heretic. And now, is that the dumbest thing I could say? Maybe. It's football. At the same time, we don't have a lot of like John F. Kennedy, like Joe Biden when he ran for president, it wasn't a thing that he was Catholic. When John F. Kennedy ran for president, it's like he can't be president because he's Catholic, which is also kind of goes back to tradition of like Notre Dame USC is a bygone era. It's like a bygone era. As much as we want to say it isn't, like when you think of Notre Dame USC, like this year, did it really register in like the top 10 games, 10 rivalry games you'd watch? And realistically, the answer is no. No, I think Brian will smite me for saying that. I'm just giving like the outside fan perspective of I'm somewhat of a normal fan. I don't have any allegiance to the Big Ten. I have no allegiance to Notre Dame. I'm a Southern person. I'm not an SEC. I'm like a Big 12 person. So I don't know. I don't think it's as big as a deal as, and that's why USC is okay. Because poll time for the audience, because I imagine we'll put this on TikTok. If you're a US, because I feel like Notre Dame fans care about it. I don't. If you're a USC like student or like recent alumnus, do you care about the Notre Dame USC game at all? And I think that's a good poll to have in this because I am interested to see how many people like UT A&M when it was canceled. It was canceled because of UT doing the whole UT Longhorn Network thing. It was contentious, but it was canceled because it moved to the SEC, and they just couldn't schedule them. Now they're back, but it's less contentious now. It's back to the origin days. But I don't think anyone was like, everyone seemed to care about that when it was gone. Like, oh, it's leaving? I feel like, and smite me if I'm wrong, especially Brian, who's going to come up in a second. I don't think anyone cares as much. And maybe I think it's because maybe USC doesn't care that much. Could be wrong. I think people are going to get mad at me in the comments, but it's going to be like old heads. I don't think current USC students seem to care all that much about Notre Dame USC. Also, USC students may not care about football that much right now, so that may be a whole thing. But that's all my thoughts on that. I'll give it to Brian, who actually has more better thoughts on it.
Let's just jump into the biggest topic that's been going on for the past day, basically. It was all day Monday. All day. What's today? Yeah, all day Monday. Today's Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., 6:50. Okay, so the biggest story that's going on in college football right now, besides the playoffs, the background stuff in between the playoff games, is Notre Dame and USC's rivalry ending. And, of course, I'm going to be biased, but I do think it is both sides' fault. I really do. I think USC is very soft for basically coming out and saying we're tired of losing late in the season to Notre Dame and knocking us out of CFP. I mean, they're 7 in their last, or they're Notre Dame's 7-2 in their last 9, so it makes sense. But I think that's soft. Just beat us. Miami beat us, and look at that. It helped them get into the CFP. Now, I can also admit that if the reports are true, that USC said, okay, what if we didn't play November late in the season, because that's what a late loss like that will keep us out. What if we play week 0 so we can keep playing? And if Notre Dame actually refused that and didn't give a reason why, then that's a soft look on us. See, that's why it's both people's fault. Now, this game has been played for almost 100 years, and I don't know, because Lincoln Riley's a pussy, it's ending. Sorry. I'm not sorry, because you have USC former players and coaches coming out of the woodworks being like, fuck this. We look like shit. This is a bad look for us. We look like pussies. We should be playing Notre Dame every year. Notre Dame should be playing us every year. I agree. But, I mean, same thing could be said about Texas and A&M, right? Like they stopped their rivalry and it came back and it's now awesome again. I do think they will get a deal done for 2030, because that's, I think, the next time we're eligible we have gaps in the schedule and we can talk about it. But I do love the move Notre Dame did by being like, okay, you don't want to play us anymore? Okay, let's go play BYU. And BYU, much credit, has embraced it. They're memeing the shit out of it, being like, other teams are like, oh, why would we schedule a hard non-conference game? That would ruin our chances for the CFB. And then the other soy jack is the big brained one from BYU going, line it up. I almost said line it up, motherfuckers, but no, a BYU account did not say that. And honestly, I love the move by Notre Dame for scheduling BYU as a replacement. I hate that the USC game is gone. That's a staple of the sport. It's not Michigan, Ohio State, but it's up there. These teams fucking hate each other. This is a top 5. I have it in top 3 rivalries in college football. And I think it's a damn shame that it's ending this way. And it's kind of both people's fault. Now, like I said earlier, I think it's more USC's fault than anything else. If they just left things how they've been for the past 100 years and not pushed out being like, oh, late season loss, scary. There we go. You have to do the double. Not like, oh man. We'll get to that in a minute. So it sucks, but that's the way college football is leading away from its traditions anyways. Across the board. It's not necessarily a bad thing. This is part of the bad things, but I don't know. Sports are going to evolve. Sports are going to change, and we kind of just have to live with it, and it sucks. This type of stuff that changes and evolves sucks. Straight up, full stop.
Okay, hi. Thanks, Brian. Thank you for your input on that. I don't know what he said. College football playoff. I want to give a few thoughts, and then there's not much to give except for maybe A&M Miami. Tulane and JMU. And I think JMU less than Tulane. Really, realistically, both of them. This is the weekend I think they needed to come out and make a statement for the group of 5. Not to say they didn't, but I think Ole Miss kind of had that game wrapped up pretty early on. I would say Oregon did, but in the second half, and if I'm Dan Lanning and like Oregon, you can come out fast as you want against a G5 team, but if you don't finish, that's kind of a problem. It's just like if you want to make a baby, you got to finish. If you want to win a game, you got to finish. And they didn't really like finish that strong. Now, again, it's JMU, and I think JMU actually did well for itself, like comparatively. They're like a Sun Belt team. And their second year bowl eligibility, it is making to the college football playoff and dropping a 30 plus bomb on Oregon, a power 3. And I don't even say power 4, a power 3 school. Good for them. I do wish Tulane had done better. And really, I wish JMU would have made it competitive in the first half at least. Because this is the weekend they needed to show out and be like, hey, the group of 5 actually belongs. And we'll go on this later, but this sparks a future conversation of, okay, it's a group of 5. You need to be here. Because I think it was Saban who said, does anyone go to JMU and say, hey, I'm ready to win a national championship? You can say you are, but are you being serious? And I think that's actually, I'm a group of 5 defender, a big defender. And I have no rebuttal to that other than they're a part of the college football landscape. They should be included. I don't know how strong that argument is anymore, especially like I know there are first round games that are blowouts, and I get that. That's going to happen all the time. But at least like in SEC, Big 12, BYU would have put up a better fight probably. And we can talk all day about how BYU like doesn't pass the eye test. Given that Oregon performance, they could have beat Oregon. And some of you may slaughter me for that, but I don't think I'm wrong. So we're going to have to reopen this next week or 2 weeks from now when we have Blake on again. We're going to have to talk about where does the group of 5 go from here? Because I do think that was a poor showing from them. Generally have thoughts on Oklahoma, Alabama. It's inevitable. It's hard to take 2 from a team. Like that's really my thought process. It's hard to take two from a team this season, especially a team like Alabama. Okay, Miami A&M. Question: can both teams be left out? Like, can both teams lose? Like, can we actually have JMU go through instead? Can we like change the rules mid-season because that game sucked? And I know people have been saying like it's a defensive battle. It was a defensive battle. It was not a defensive battle. Defensive battle is when like the defense smothers the offense, even though the offense is like trying. I don't know if Marcel Reed tried. I don't know if Carson Beck tried for like at least the first 3 quarters. I don't know what I watched. I will say it's very funny. I watched. I think that is the funniest possible outcome for the entire game, because the narrative in beforehand, Miami shouldn't be here or Notre Dame should be here. I mean, leave out someone else, and like Miami is probably the choice. Evil committee theory, and they go in and they play in just a stinker of a game. Mark Fletcher Jr., not a stinker of a game. Real breakout performance by him. I think he's a junior. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's a junior. I don't know what his draft stock looks like. I would imagine that increased it. At the same time, it's not like A&M's defense. They were good. It was just like the offense just sucked. The offense on both sides. And they like blame the wind. I get it. But don't settle for a field goal. Go score a touch. And like Brian and I have talked about this before. It is hard in 60 minutes of football not to score a touchdown. It's hard. It's just like if you're like an equally matched team. They scored 1 field goal. JMU scored 10 times that against Oregon, who is theoretically a better team than Miami. I don't think they played as a better team, but they theoretically are. Tulane scored 3 times more, and that was it. It was bad. It was not fun. It was Marcel Reed was a Heisman candidate. And I know everyone has stinkers. Like Carson Beck, I expect it from him. Marcel Reed, it's like, oh my gosh, dude. Like you were in the Heisman conversation. Now the conversation I have is like, are you good about to Quinn Ewers and go like 5th, 6th round? I don't know if he's leaving. I haven't checked. I imagine he is though. The funniest possible outcome, because one, Do we have to hand it to the committee now? Do they know what they were doing? No, again, Notre Dame would have stomped this A&M team. And I am not an A&M or a Notre Dame defender, as we've seen in the previous comments about the BYU USC thing. I'm not a defender. They would have stomped them. It is the funniest possible outcome now, because now it's like, well, crap, because the A&M was supposed to go through. Now you have battered Aggie syndrome. Just at the speaking of battered Aggie syndrome, A&M fans, can you answer this question for me? You won a national championship in volleyball against, like, you beat going through Kentucky, Nebraska, and Pitt. I mean, I think Pitt has the best player in the nation. Kentucky, you lost to Kentucky, and Nebraska is like the volleyball team. You beat like two dynastic teams. I don't know if Pitt is. Pitt is like, you got one good player, and then the rest are less good. You won that, and that's a natty. That's an easy natty. I think that's your first natty. But you did pretty much have a humiliation in the first round of the college football playoff. Now you're there, and Texas isn't. But you still aren't there anymore after losing to Miami. What monkey paw was curled for that? I want to win a national championship, and it's like volleyball, which, not to disparage volleyball, all that. I mean, volleyball team swept Kentucky. They swept Kentucky. They went to 5 against Nebraska. Did they go 5 against Pitt? Can't remember. But congratulations to the volleyball, but it does like monkey paw a little bit. Last thought on this. UT fans who live in Houston, like the Houston area especially, I mean, this has to be like the biggest, best hate watch weekend of all time, right? OU loses to Alabama, A&M loses to Miami, and then you have the Cowboys out of the playoffs. I mean, if I'm an A&M fan, I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to the Citrus Bowl. Like, A&M and OU, yeah, they made it to the college football playoff, but also they didn't. They lasted one round. Like an old man. They're like Hugh Hefner with those girls, lasting one round maybe. A&M, I don't know if we can even call it that. But then you got UT, you got to play the Citrus Bowl against Michigan. And then if you're a Houston fan, you're like, well, my team still won. Cowboys are out. Great times. That's all I have in college football. I'll move on to NFL next.
I guess we can stay in college football, and we'll bounce over to the playoffs real quick. Wow, Texas A&M and Miami. Before I say anything else, once again, bias. But I truly believe that the Notre Dame at the end of the season would have beaten both these teams. However, they have already played, and they both had the head-to-head, so it makes total sense why they are in the college football playoff ahead of us. Two things can be true at the same time. Notre Dame trended up this entire season. Miami went up, 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 down, and A&M went Texas game and never recovered. So I do think Notre Dame got better as the season got on and would have won against both Miami and Texas A&M. However, that does not matter. Another hypothetical win for Notre Dame because we didn't make the CFP, and rightfully so by the letter of the law that the committee put out, even though the letter of the law that the committee put out makes no sense and is just a whole biased scumbag fuck. On a real note, that's just, just put the copium right here, Jordan. Yeah, but it was an exciting finish. That's the nicest thing I can say about that game. It was an exciting finish. And then, God, the group of 5 games are murder. JMU at least put up 34 points. Let's give them a little bit of credit. They did cover, I think. 22 points. JMU score. They were 22 points. Oh, yeah, they covered. So, shout out JMU. You made it to the playoffs and you covered the spread. That's something. I'm leaving it in the past. And then the Tulane game was just bad. I totally understand the people that are like, oh, why do we let any group of 5 teams in? Well, you have to. It sucks that this wasn't around when that UCF season, Central Florida. I would have loved to see Central Florida in a 12-team, that Central Florida team in a 12-team playoff. I think that would have been awesome. A group of 5 team pops up every now and then and kicks ass. But for the past 2 years for the 12-team playoff, it's been brutal for them, man. But I mean, what's to be done? And then, of course, I'll end it off on what I thought was the best game, and that was Oklahoma, Alabama. Man, Oklahoma, 17-point lead and ends up losing the game. I mean, Alabama just proved why they should have been in the playoff. That's all I could say. As you know, this again, the whole like Alabama doesn't belong there. They've looked like shit. They're a 3-loss team, even though one of them is a conference championship, which they shouldn't be punished for. But that's a whole nother discussion. We don't have to get into it. But Notre Dame should be in over them. Blah blah blah. Committee bad. SEC bias. They took care of business against Oklahoma, albeit major comeback. But hey, a win's a win. You can't fault a win. And actually, I think that's a confidence booster for them anyways. If they play like this, they played in the second half for the college football playoff, they could win it. They could win it. But they've proven time and time again they can't really put a full game together in this later half of the year. But no, they put to bed they belong to the CFP, and so that argument's put to bed, and that's okay. It was a good game. But that's all I really have on college. Oh, no. I did have one thing less to talk about. If you're a Texas UT, or if you're a University of Texas fan, you have to have had the best case scenario possible when the worst case scenario popped up, which is your two heated rivals, your two biggest rivals made the CFP and you didn't. And then one of them looks like absolute dog water, putting up 3 points against Miami. And then the other one gives up a huge comeback in a heartbreaking fashion against Alabama. Texas A&M and Oklahoma eliminated. That's the best case scenario that UT fans could have asked for going into the playoff, the way it was set up. Seeing that both teams made it and watching both kind of get embarrassed is in different ways. The offense was, hold on, let's time out real quick. Texas A&M defense has every right to stare at Texas A&M's offense being like, what the fuck? 10 points. You needed to score 4 field goals. 4 field goals and we win this game. A touchdown and 2 field goals. No, a touchdown and 2 field goals. No, but you could have gotten a safety. Shut up. So Texas A&M defense, you can ignore this part. Or Texas A&M defensive fans, you can ignore this part. But to watch your team that you hate so much as a UT fan, University of Texas, not University of Tennessee, but watching them both get embarrassed on national TV and the CFP had to be a nice little consolation prize to not making the CFP. It had to feel good a little bit. At least it did for Tessa, who was texting me the entire time, laughing her ass off. All right. That'll do it for college football.
Thanks, Brian. Great analysis. Texans Raiders. God gives his toughest Texans battles to the easiest teams. I know people have been saying, oh, they played down to the Raiders. I don't think you play down is like when you slow down the tempo a little bit, or you run the ball more, or you kind of know like, hey, this is not going to be a hard game. It's how you play the Titans. You go, hey, we're going to run the ball a little bit, pass a little bit, but we're going to try to run down the clock a little bit, probably score 2 or 3 touchdowns, call it a day. Easy enough. Our defense will get the job done. They're not going to score. This wasn't play down to competition. They looked genuinely bad. Now, before I'd go on any sort of rant, survive in advance. That's all that matters. A W is a W, and that's all that matters right now. It is more about looking at this team and going, if you make the playoffs, which, knock on wood, gonna happen. I do think the Jaguars have the division. That's a whole another conversation in a second. If you do make the playoffs, you can't do this. Like, your defense maybe had a game. I would say that's more because Giante should have been Heisman. You're looking at him the first season in the NFL, and I know he's running back, so he only has a limited amount of years. So maybe 5 years. Let's say he's a good running back 5 years after this. Not everyone's a Derrick Henry, where you're like, I can just run forever. Nick Chubb, I can just go forever. But Derrick Henry more. I know people were saying like, oh, it was a down game for the defense. They played down. I actually don't think that's the case. I think the defense played very well. I think it was just Giante is really good at football. And that's okay. Sometimes you're going to run into a player you just can't stop. Like a player that's just so good at their craft, you can't stop them. And that's okay. We take those wins. You look towards the offense and go, hey, this isn't a good team. We can still win this game. When we can do a pick six. And then you guys go score a couple. Apparently that's a little bit harder than easier. It's a little bit harder to do than that. It just was not a good looking game. With that said, who cares? A W's a W. Texans moving on. And like they probably will make the playoffs because they're 10-5 at this point. Good. Yeah, they're 10-5. Which like a 12-5 season feels it's the same thing with like UH. Where if, let's say they went out for the last two games. I think it's the Colts and I'm missing one. But let's say they went out the last two games. It feels like a UH season where you're like, yeah, it is 12-5, but it never felt like a 12-5. They play the Chargers, which is, that's giving me a little bit harder. And then the Colts, which I think will be easy enough. And I'll get to the Colts in a second. Win is a win. I'm not going to focus too much on how the offense looks sloppy and uninspiring. That's probably the best way I can talk about them. Again, W's a W, don't care. Survived in advance, that's all you need. Was it returning Geno Smith part of that equation at all? Why the defense looked maybe a little shoddy, but really I think it's just Giante. I mean, he had 128 plus yards and 60-yard touchdown catch and like a 51-yard run. He's spectacular. Should have won the Heisman. I think we can all agree on that. Hopefully he does better. One last thing on the Texans. Will Anderson Jr., look, fun stat. He leads in third down disruptions, which are sacks, pressures, and tackles. And he has 42 pressures on third down, which is 11 more than the next person who I don't know who that is, but he's 42. He has more than the next person. Texans defense is okay. Sometimes you just run into a player that's generational and you can't stop him. And that's okay. That's what you live. You live with those. You take those. We all take those. W is a W. All that said. And we'll get to Brian in a second, as I want to do this real quickly, and then I'll jump into my next thing. I think the Jaguars are winning the division. They play the Colts and the Titans next. They're also 11-4, and I just think they got this. I'm not upset at that. I think that, again, it's about making it to the playoffs. Would you rather be like a higher seed? Of course you would. Win the division, get the higher seed. Of course you would. I'm not going to fight it too much because I feel like in context, the season's like up and down battles the entire time.
I'm going to go to talk about the NFL before I give my picks. I mean, we should have beat the shit out of the Raiders, man. Texans, we should have killed them. But no, this was the classic. Houston is so good at playing down to the competition that is in front of them. And they rise up to competition that's in front of them too. That's better. But when they're their worst team, I mean, we had the double trouble about it. Now, luckily, Houston Texans won against we're playing down game, but the Rockets lost to the Kings, which is, wait, was it Kings? I don't think it was Kings. If it was Kings, I kind of take that back. Rockets score. Yeah, it was the Kings. What's the Kings record? Kings record. Oh, cool. They're 7-22. Awesome. So yes, they did in fact play down to competition and lose to a team that was vastly inferior. But at least the Texans played down to the level of the Raiders and won barely. But this is what's to be expected from the Texans. Listen, I'm not complaining. A win's a win. Didn't look pretty. A win's a win. But that type of football that we just witnessed will get us killed in the playoffs. So, I mean, defense did pretty okay. They gave up some big. Jonty was a problem. Jonty looked great, by the way. Jonty did that against the number one scoring defense in the league, or was. I need to check if that's been changed. But Jonty looks great, and our defense could not stop him really. And had the Raiders, I think, used him even more, it would have been a problem. Now, offense was like, we kept on, it felt like we were hitting the ignition, but not getting a get off. It was like plateau, never like rocket ship to the to the moon. But I mean, they did enough to get a win. Nico Collins, he's just so good, man. So clutch with that game, essentially game sealing catch is the way to say it. Jorden, I really like. He's looking explosive and good. Woody Marks, I don't hate resting him. I guess Mixon is gone. He's just not playing this year, huh? I mean, typical Houston medical staff bullshit, right? What's to be done? Yeah, I don't really have much else on the Texans. I could talk about the Bears for a little bit. I said that Caleb Williams was going to have a very good season, and Bears fans were going to be ecstatic of what they have. And I think he has fully delivered. He split with the Packers, which is huge. I think he beat the Packers in January last year, too. So I think he's overall split with the Packers 2-2. And I think most Bears fans would tell me if their second-year quarterback, had played the Packers 4 times and they go 2-2, they are ecstatic, especially with the way he looked. He legitimately is making plays and has stepped up. He's been unlocked by Ben Johnson, essentially. Like, who knew that Eberflus or the other incompetent coaches the Bears have had over the years are incompetent, and they bring in the hottest commodity in Ben Johnson, and boom, Caleb Williams looks like a superstar again. Looks like the Heisman. But yeah, so Bears fans, that's got to feel pretty good, right? Leading your division, clinch the playoff spot, y'all coasting.
Thanks, Brian. I don't know if he mentioned it, but I was going to talk about Jaguars playing the Colts. Phillip Rivers. I know Brian included that in his notes, so I'm going to talk about him a little bit. Phillip Rivers, and I think that was his last game we're going to see him play this season. I think Riley Leonard is coming in next, is what I'm seeing. Watching him play this and kind of knowing like we're on limited time, like he's on borrowed time as it is and unlimited time as it is. Watching him play feels like listening to like Too Fast by Jason Aldean. You see all those TikTok edits of like Colt. I've seen like 1,000 Colt McCoy edits, which goes back to like UT fans are having a great weekend. It feels like watching him play where it's like, this is just a style of football that doesn't exist anymore. Like watch him at the line, call out the defense and like adjust the line, adjust the players. It feels like you really don't see that anymore. It feels like a bygone time. And it was beautiful. Like I've talked about how like the culture is best when you're 12 years old. Now you always say that's the best culture. Now, I don't think that's true with me. I think probably it's more like when I was 16. I'm like, oh, hipster era. Fuck yeah. I'm Monsters and Men. Not Monsters and Men. Forget that I said that. Can't remember the Little Talks band. That was awesome. But Phillip Rivers, he feels like a bygone era. It was for these last 2 weeks, and I think these are the last 2 weeks, and that's okay. It felt like we got to see what it was like when gods played football. And now, like, as much as I love like the Mahomeses, the Lamars, the Allens, the Herberts, the Drake May, it does, like, there's just something special about watching that. And it feels like the Too Fast by Jesse Aldean playing in the background as he goes. And listen, if it was only these 2 weeks, and this is the end of the Phillip Rivers NFL career / experiment for the 2 weeks, it was beautiful. Because that first week he had 120 yards. This week he had 300 plus yards. To be 44 years old and coming out of nowhere, like he wasn't on a roster for like multiple years beforehand, and coming back and throwing 300 plus yards. We used to watch gods play football, and he made me remember that. And it was beautiful, and like even if for a brief second we got to experience that again, it was worth it. As much as I want to intellectualize how this feels, I think I might. It was wonderful watching him one last time. Speaking of quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, okay, just fun fact about him I learned while researching this podcast. He leading EPA per play, which is like how he affects the play, good or bad, this season. He leads the league. He has a .28. Now he only has 256 plays, and the next guy, Jordan Love, has 0.24. He has 507 plays. Drake May has 0.21, 594 plays. That said, that's still like an insane amount, right? Like, and he's not like technically leading. Like, I think Malik Wilson, who's the Green Bay backup, has like 29 plays. And he has a 0.4 something, but he has like 29 plays. I just know about Purdy. Is this I'd be interested to see if Purdy hadn't gotten hurt, what that would look like. But I digress. Last thing on the NFL, I'm just locking in Patriots versus Rams for the Super Bowl. Easy.
I don't really have too much more to talk about, but let's see if I can. Oh, Phillip Rivers, perfect. So Phillip Rivers played last night, and you know what? When Phillip Rivers signed, let's just have this conversation. When Phillip Rivers signed with the Colts, everyone was like, it's going to be cool to see him, play in the NFL again. It's been 5 years. This is one of the giants that used to play when gods used to play every Sunday in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. Like this is awesome to see him out there. But no, I don't think anyone expected anything really. Like not much. Sure, he's a 44-year-old man, like, and a grandpa. He's not going to be able to sling it like he used to. And he didn't in the first game. But, he was competitive against arguably the best defense in the league. I still think it's the Texans, but top 3 defense in the league. Let you rank them as you please. And I was like, it's not bad. And then last night, the Colts defense completely let down the Colts defense completely let down the Colts offense. Colts offense scored 27 points against a very good defense. And the Colts offense just could not get a stop. I think they scored on like every possession for the first like 6 possessions or something like that. It was crazy. And Phillip Rivers threw for almost 300 yards. I think he threw for 277, 2 touchdowns, and a pick 6 at the end of the game because they were in desperation mode and had to chuck it. And he almost hit, oh my God, he almost hit a like 45-yard throw. I think it was like closer to 35-yard throw downfield to keep the game rolling. And it would have been awesome. And it would have been real Phillip Rivers back. Dadgummit! And all that stuff, cheering, kicking down the door like he used to. But it's cool to see him back. 277 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, and 27 points scored with the Colts defense, if they're actually playing, should be a win. And they're 0-2, and it does sound like, unfortunately, they might be heading in the Riley Leonard direction, which it's not anything against Riley Leonard. It's really not. It's more Phillip Rivers after this season isn't going to come back again. Or at least it's almost impossible that he comes back. But he might. But basically what I'm saying is Riley Leonard gets to probably start these last 2 games. I understand it. But at the same time, if you're going to be eliminated, start Phillip Rivers. Just do it. Let us see it. Like, I'm going to the Texans game last Texans game of the season. I was so ecstatic to see Phillip Rivers live. But alas, it doesn't. It looks like they're going the Riley Leonard route.
Okay, a few last notes before we head out here. One, Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. This is not a review. I'm not a boxing guy. Don't really like boxing that much. I do tune into like the highlights of the Jake Paul fights just because I'm fascinated by Jake Paul, and I have been since the Team 10 days. I learned I still reference England as my city. I was in England this past year. I kept saying England is my city and myself because it's funny. I'm not going to say I gained respect for him because I don't think that's the right way to put this, but I do find it interesting that the main criticism against him for years, and this is not to glaze Jake Paul. I am not here to tell you, I like Jake Paul. I'm a man who is here to offer compliments when the compliments are due. Getting in the ring with Anthony Joshua, even though he may be past his prime. I mean, he's a former world champion. I don't understand the boxing world championship, but he is a former world champion. He actually fought guys, and he's also huge compared to Jake Paul. To get in the ring with that guy, and even if he put up a sloppy fight, because he's not a great boxer, like we can admit that to ourselves, right? I do have some respect for that. Even if I don't respect Jake Paul as a human or the Paul brothers, really, I do have a respect for getting in the ring with like a guy who can actually go after facing like Ben Askren's. You're like, really? He's a wrestler. It's not really a review. It's more just like here's a quick hit on just something. I don't know. I think he retired from boxing as well, and I'm interested to see where he goes next. He probably will do something next. I do think he cared about boxing. He did bring more eyes to boxing. I don't know if that's true. Like if boxing fans agree, but he did bring more eyes. All that just to say, a little bit of respect gained. Last thing, I saw Avatar: Fire and Ash, and this is not meant to be a review. This is more meant to be if I was a director, I'd be James Cameron, not from the Titanic. Like I'm a good director, more from like I was watching the movie and it was in 4DX. And by the way, 4DX, interesting concept because I find myself more or less interested in the movie, more interested in whenever I get to like feel like I'm on a roller coaster. It was very fun for that. Like the water, the wind, that was fun. With that said, I was watching Avatar: Fire and Ash, and it was later in the evening. I think it was like 8:45 showtime. Who knows when that starts? And I look over at my girlfriend's watch, what I feel like after 2 hours, and it's 10:25. A movie probably started at 9. I'm like, are you kidding me? No part felt unimportant, but when I say I feel like I would be James Cameron, it's where he goes, the movie is going to be 3 hours and 15 minutes. You're going to like it. It's like when I write a blog and I have 40 footnotes. It's like, no, all these are important. That's kind of how I felt about him in this movie, where it's like, and I also didn't remember anything about the Avatar movies whatsoever. I have no memory. Like when Spider showed up, and that's not a spoiler, but when he showed up, and I was like, who the hell is that guy? He's not blue. And then I had to like piece together, like, oh, he was in the last movie, wasn't he? A very interesting film franchise because there are no cultural references to it. All that said, a fun movie, enjoyable time. At the same time, holy shit, it's long. And also, I respect James Cameron just saying, we're going to do this movie. And I don't care if no one really cares that much. Like, I heard someone behind me very interested in some plot points. Like, there were some things that happened, callbacks, and she was very interested. And I was like, am I missing? And then I was missing something because I don't remember anything about the show. So, that's all. All right, picks real quickly. Actually, yeah, picks real quickly. I'm just going to go through this. Cowboys, Lions, Broncos. I wonder who Brian picked for this. I do feel like it should be. I feel like Texans. I feel like the defense can keep the Chargers at bay. So Texans, Packers, Dolphins, Patriots, Steelers, Jaguars, Saints. Because the Saints are looking great these days. Should have probably talked about that. Seahawks, Bengals, Giants. Yeah, whatever. No, actually, Raiders, not Giants. Raiders. Bills, Bears, Rams. That's my picks.
Anyways, I've been going for 17 minutes. I'm surprised I got that much out of it. All right, I'm gonna start with picks first. Last week I went. Oh, well, hold on. I forgot. I can now adjust for the Colts. That was an L. Last week I went 11-5 to bring my total up to 138, 87, and 1. And I'm just gonna jump on into it. Cowboys at Commanders. I'm gonna go Commanders. Lions at Vikings. I'm gonna go Lions. Broncos at Chiefs. I'm gonna go Broncos. Texans at Chargers. You know what? I'm gonna change it to Chargers. Actually, Ravens at Packers. Packers. Both these teams are in need to win mode. I think Packers take it because they're at home. Buccaneers at Dolphins. Buccaneers need a desperate win. Dolphins aren't that good. Take the over, but I think Buccaneers win it. Jets. Patriots, but the Jets would love nothing more than to knock off the Patriots and open the door for the Bills. It'd be very funny. Actually, I don't know if they've clinched. Steelers at Browns. Steelers. Jaguars at Colts. I wrote down Colts, but they got rid of, or they're not going to start Philly Rivers, so I'm going to change it to Jaguars. Saints at Titans. I'm going to go Saints. They've got something cooking, man. I like their QB. He's come in and been an electric play. I think he's 3-0 or like 3-1. Seahawks at Panthers. Seahawks. They're arguably the best team in the NFL. Cardinals at Bengals. Bengals. Joe Burrow's. Is he trying out for other teams? No, he's not. But I think Bengals are going to win this. They're going to play with pride. Giants at Raiders. Giants. Eagles at Bills. Oh, that's such a good game. Bills. Bears at 49ers. Bears. And Rams at Falcons. Rams. That's a pretty good slate. There's some stinkers in there. There's some stinky boys in there, but there's some fun at the end. Now, jumping over to my side of things. Oh, right. Colts +6 was a loss. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my betting side of things. I went 12-4 last week. And starting off with the Cowboys and Commanders under 51. Lions at Vikings. Oops. Over 44 is what I meant. So Lions/Vikings over 44. My apologies. I wrote this down wrong on our way home from another Christmas activity. It's just been nonstop. I've had no time. I've had no sleep. Broncos -13. Texans money line. Cardinals Bengals over 53. Patriots -13.5. Saints -2.5. Steelers -4. Seahawks -7. Buccaneers Dolphins over 45.5. Giants money line. Bills -2. Rams -8. I forgot to put in for the Bears game. I'm gonna go Bears. 49ers over, and whatever their over is. Let me go check it out real quick. Over 51. Wow, that's a lot of points, but I'm going to take it.
Good picks, Brian.
That's going to do it for me. I got 20 minutes out of it. Nice. Even though part of it was just me scrolling on my phone and looking stuff up. That's going to do it for me. Jordan, I am so sorry that you have this wonderful task of putting this all together. I love you and continue to do your thing. And I don't know why I said that. This is the 3 hours of sleep talking. I don't know what thing I was referring to. But thank you for taking care of this. Thank you for encouraging me to do this, because I think I just said do a solo pod, or in my head I was like do a solo pod. Then all the Notre Dame UFC stuff came out, and I was USC, excuse me, and I was like I can't not talk about it. So I'm glad I ended up doing this.
Where can the people? Thanks for listening. I don't know. Where can the people find you?
You can find me across all social medias at Org Polaris, AURICPOLRIS, especially at twitch.tv/Org Polaris. We're still stuck on Gargoyles and Elden Ring. It still sucks. I refuse to go grind and level up a whole bunch. I might do it because I'm very sad and upset. Jordan, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Jordan Stotts on Twitter and across all platforms at Moonsam Sports, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm missing one. Don't know what it is. X. There we go. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful and happy Merry Christmas. It's going to come out on Christmas Eve, so have a wonderful. I will be back next week with a special episode with my girlfriend. She's been asking to come on, so we're going to talk sports. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful, safe holiday weekend, and we will see you next week.
Happy holidays. Let's have a week and a week.